record. Once upon a time, when a certain king of Benares reigned at Benares, an ascetic named Devala, who had resided for 8 months in the Himalaya country, desiring to reside near the city during the 4 months of the rains, returned from the Himalaya for salt and vinegar. Seeing 2 boys at the gate of the city, he asked them, Where do monks who come to this city spend the night? In the potter's hall, reverend sir. So Devala went to the potter's hall, stopped at the door, and said, If it is agreeable to you, Bhagava, I should like to spend 1 night in your hall. This is like a polite question. The potter turned over the hall to him, saying, I have no work going on in the hall at night, and the hall is a large one. Spend the night here as you please, reverend sir. No sooner had Devala entered the hall and sat down than another ascetic named Nārada, returning from the Himalaya, asked the potter for a night's lodging. Yeah, let's stop this. So loud, no? The potter thought to himself, the ascetic who arrived first may or may not be willing to spend the night with him. This is a second ascetic, no, coming. I will therefore relieve myself of responsibility. So he said to the ascetic who had just arrived, you see, Reverend sir, if the ascetic who arrived first approves, spend the night at his pleasure. So Nārada approached Devala and said, Teacher, if it is agreeable to you, I should like to spend 1 night here. Devala replied, The hall is a large one, therefore come in and spend the night on one side. So Nārada went in and sat down behind the ascetic, who had gone in before him. Both exchanged friendly greetings. When it was bedtime, Nārada noted carefully the place where Devala lay and the position of the door, and then lay down. But when Devala lay down, instead of lying down on his proper place, he lay down directly across the doorway. The result was that when Nārada went out at night, he trod on Devala's matted locks. Thereupon Devala cried out, Who is treading on my locks? Nārada replied, Teacher, it is I. False ascetic, said Devala, you come from the forest and tread on my locks. Teacher, I did not know that you were lying there. Pardon me. Nārada then went out, leaving Devala weeping as if his heart would break. Devala thought to himself, I will let him tread on me when he comes in also. I will let him tread on me when he comes in also. So he turned around and lay down, placing his head where his feet had been before. When Nārada came in, he thought to himself, the first time I injured the teacher. This time I will go in past his feet. The result was that when Nārada entered, he trod on Devala's neck. Thereupon Devala cried out, Who is that? Nārada replied, It is I, teacher. False ascetic, said Devala. The first time you trod on my locks, this time you tread on my neck. I will curse you. Teacher, I am not to blame. I did not know that you were lying in this position. When I came in, I thought to myself, the first time I injured the teacher. This time I will go in past his feet. Pardon me. False ascetic, I will curse you. Do not so, teacher. But Devala, paying no attention to what Nārada said, cursed him all the same, saying, here Agatha, no? The sun possesses 1,000 rays and 100 flames, is dispeller of darkness. When the sun rises on the morrow, may your head split into 7 pieces. Narada said, Teacher, I told you it was not my fault, but in spite of what I said, you have cursed me. Let the head of the guilty man split into 7 pieces, not that of the innocent. Thereupon Narada pronounced the following curse. The sun possesses 1,000 rays and 100 flames, is dispeller of darkness. When the sun rises on the morrow, may your head split into 7 pieces. Now Narada possessed great supernatural power and could call to mind 80 cycles of time, 40 cycles in the past and 40 in the future. So considering on whom will the curse fall, and perceiving that it would fall on his brother ascetic, he felt compassion for him, and therefore put forth the power of his magic and prevented the sun from rising. When the sun failed to rise, the citizens assembled before the gate of the king's palace and wailed, Your Majesty, the sun has not risen, and you are the king. Make the sun rise for us. The king surveyed his own deeds, words, and thoughts, and seeing no impropriety, thought to himself, What can be the cause? Suspecting that it might be because of a quarrel of the monks, he inquired, Are there any monks in this city? Your Majesty, last evening there were some arrivals at the potter's hall. The king immediately went there with torches carried before him, paid obeisance to Narada, seated himself respectfully on one side, and said, Narada, the people of the land of the rose apple are unable to pursue their wonted occupations. Why is the world overspread with darkness? Tell me in answer to my question. Narada told him the whole story. For this reason, said he, I was cursed by this ascetic. So I cursed him back, saying, I am not to blame. Let the curse fall upon whichever of us is to blame. But when I had cursed him, I considered within myself, upon whom will the curse fall? And perceived that as soon as the sun rose, the head of my brother ascetic would split into 7 pieces. Therefore, out of pity for him, I am not permitting the sun to rise. But, reverend sir, how can he escape destruction? He may escape destruction by begging my pardon. Well then, said the king to Devala, beg his pardon. Devala replied, Great king, this fellow trod on my matted locks and on my neck. I will not beg pardon of this false ascetic. Beg his pardon, reverend sir, do not act thus. Great king, I will not beg his pardon. Your head will split into 7 pieces. Nevertheless, I will not beg his pardon. I am convinced that you will not beg his pardon of your own free will, said the king. Thereupon, taking him by the hands, feet, belly, and neck, the king compelled him to bow down before Narada's feet. Narada said, Rise, teacher, I pardon you. Then said Narada to the king, Great king, since this ascetic does not ask pardon of his own free will, take him to a certain lake not far from the city, put a lump of clay on top of his head, and make him stand in the water up to his neck. The king did so. Then said Narada to Devala, Teacher, I will put forth my magical power and cause the sun to rise. At that moment, duck in the water. Rise in a different place and go your way. As soon as the sun's rays touched the lump of clay, it split into 7 pieces. Thereupon, Devala ducked in the water, rose in a different place, and ran away. This is the end of the story. Okay? So, okay, it wasn't that long, no? Now maybe